Okay, and we're back. In the previous video, I mentioned that there was a question from one of you that I wanted to answer. Let me just grab it. Nazaratsu, a loyal tuner in to this channel for a long time now. And I just want to say thank you for your time and attention to what you obviously agree is a very serious subject. Just really wish this could be a little bit more of a fun channel, but it's just not going to happen. It's too heavy, and if any of you feel a tendency that you feel like it's a bit of a drag or you're being brought down or it's too depressing, that's fine. Come back to it another time. I'm with you on that. But Nazaratsu, thank you. And your question, how can I help those around me realize what's happening? Excuse me, without being shunned as a lunatic. They won't listen. Well, there's a couple of different parts to that question, and a number of ways that I can answer it. But I think the important thing to look at first is that helping the people around us realize what is happening is a complicated process because we never quite know how open-minded other people are. It's especially difficult when it's our own friends and family. Psychologically, we are all geared to save face. None of us likes to think that we have been fooled, taken for a ride, and we especially don't appreciate when our source of fun and simulated freedom online is brought up for review or critique by those around us. We take it personally. We take it as a criticism on who we are. So automatically there's a lot of defenses that are going to fly up when you try and talk about this subject with the people around you. And it's hard to know, how do I approach this? How do I drop it into the conversation? How do I give a bit of a hint? How do I open up some kind of window for some conversation about this to get a feel of where this person is at with it? Are they going to agree with me about this? Are we going to sit here talking about it for an hour and them agreeing with me on all of it, only for them to turn their smartphone back on as soon as I'm out of the room, as if the conversation never took place and it was just another conversation for the sake of having a conversation and only one of us wasted our time. So it's tough. It's very difficult, and especially when smartphones and the internet have become such a core basis around which we orbit in the world, and that was not our doing either. It's been very much forced on us, and in such a clever way, because they can all turn around to us and say, yeah, but we didn't ask you to be here. It's like, yeah, you effing did. Because apparently I can't do this, that, or the other unless I have a smartphone and give you my effing phone number. They have created a global environment that is using a smartphone and the internet as the go-to or else, which is ridiculous. Look at what happened with COVID. Scan your thingy and check in here. We did the barcode crap. Sorry, no can do. I don't have a smartphone. I mean, how ridiculous are they to assume that everybody would even have one when clearly in mobile phone shops, smartphones are not the only type of phone that they sell. So we'd probably be among the rare few that don't have a smartphone. So when you're dealing with a majority of people who do, and for many of those people it has become their umbilical cord to an assumed sense of security and of safety, it is a very difficult process to help them understand that even that sensation that they get from carrying their phone around is bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Nothing bad's going to happen just because they don't have their phone. What bad thing is going to happen because they don't have their smartphone? They forget that the whole world functioned fine before smartphones. Huge businesses, corporations, billion-dollar corporations all over the world functioned fine without smartphones and without the internet. Music concerts, world tours happened without smartphones. How? Because unlike a lot of people today, they were professional, organized, and they knew what they were doing. They actually exercised their God-given right to intelligence. They did not rely on a handheld device to think for them, to tell them which direction to go in, to tell them where the nearest restaurant is, to call so-and-so in their hotel room and say we need to be down in the lobby at 8. They didn't need a smartphone for that because everybody got their schedule the night before on paper. So what's actually happened is that where businesses flourished, where human potential was reaching a point of striving and open-mindedness to hopefully maybe one day embrace some kind of higher form of living, that where careers were successful, that where merit was rewarded, that it's no longer the case because, unfortunately, may he rest in peace, Steve Jobs thought it'd be great to put the internet into a phone. Just like he thought it'd be awesome to carry your whole record collection around in an iPod. As if you would ever be able to listen to all of that. For what? So you can listen to it on the train or when you go for a walk or go for a run. We had Walkmans and I don't get it. I just don't get it. I mean, whatever. That's iPods. It's a cool thing. It's neat. Oh, look, this device can store all of this. What a handy thing. I don't need to worry about packing CDs in the car or tapes or anything like that. I can just take this, plug it in, and I can dial it up and we're ready to go. Well done. I don't mean any disrespect to Steve Jobs at all. But I think for every good idea that a brilliant person has, they're just as capable of having a really, really bad one. And the really, really bad one is putting the internet into smartphones. I've gone a little bit off your question just to sort of give you some insight into why I'm choosing to answer it in this way. That you say here they won't listen. Well, they have no incentive to listen for a start. They are not aware that their life is on the line. They're not aware that their survival is being threatened most directly by carrying a smartphone. They have no clue that to say that a smartphone keeps you safe is one of the most absurd suggestions that can be made about that device. It is, the truth of it is so that if they knew it, the more feeble-minded would probably go mad or panic. Seriously, the truth of what a smartphone does to a human being with the internet in it is so horrible that I actually stop short of talking about it when I bring this up with other people, because I don't want to make them feel sick. I don't want to frighten them. So you have to be very careful. Instead, I talk about more obvious things like, well, Facebook's got pedophiles in it. It's a safe haven for pedophiles. So is Twitter. Oh, wow. So is the internet. You know, but let's just look at Facebook. You'll hear me mention Facebook a lot because Facebook is a lot more ominous of a network than people realize. Murderers, criminals, God bless them. Stalkers, sex traffickers, drug dealers, God bless you. And you can say to your friends, your family, so how do you feel living under the same roof as pedophiles? And they go, what do you mean? Well, Facebook generally operates under one or two IP addresses. So that's your IP address when you're part of Facebook's network. I mean, sure, you've got your phone number, and you've got your own device, and they can track you and trace you to being sort of somewhere outside of Facebook's IP address. But as long as you've got an account there, you're sharing the same house as pedophiles, as some of the most disturbed people in the world. They're in the next room, under the same roof. And this doesn't bother you. You know, I mean, when we put it like that, it's kind of shocking. We don't generally think of it. We think, oh yeah, well, Facebook's a big place, or YouTube's a big place, or Twitter's a big place, or this forum's a big place, or that platform's a big place. You know, we're all here together, and yeah, you're going to get that. It's the same as saying, oh, there's a D block, high security prison inmate in the next room in your house. But yeah, you're going to get that. You know, it could happen. I mean, what are we going to do about it? Well, I don't know. You know, you might want to move. Might want to move out. Unless you want to make friends with them. But I don't see that happening either. Unless you accidentally do, or your children do, you know. So I think that a good entry point for how to talk about this with other people is to bring it down a level, bring it down a notch, and talk to them about the issues that these networks face, that the internet faces for safety. and in what ways they do directly threaten the safety and survival of people who carry a smartphone around with these apps inside them. Apps that geolocate them everywhere they go. Absolutely everywhere. I mean, sure, turn your location tracking off, turn your data off, but who trusts that? I don't. I don't have a smartphone. I look at a smartphone, especially iPhones, and I feel like there's an evil presence in the room, because it is. It's a slab of ego. It's just a dirty, chunky slab of chemically based, toxic, arrogant ego. And I don't say that to offend anyone at all. It is a military vice. I understand that it took a certain level of ingenuity to create it. Well done. Somebody also invented the atom bomb. It doesn't mean it's good for us. Not every idea is a good idea. And there are companies out there who, pay their new recruits to sit in little office cells, networking and brainstorming to come up with new ideas, just so that they can be the winners. That company can be the winner of, we're the company with the most patents for the year. But how many of them are a threat to our survival, and how many of them are actually beneficial to all life on Earth? I mean, really. They never talk about that. It's just about, look what we thought of doing. Wow, no hands. Many of them are still playing the people who are into making robots and just the fake humans. I mean, they are still 6 years old in their bedrooms, kind of, delighted and entertained by this little robot toy that they got for Christmas, except now they're grown up, the robot's bigger and they've got a bigger room to play with it in and put it together in. It's an infantile mindset. It's not clever. Putting it together and making it work, sure, you need a bit of know-how for that. It takes some skills. But the idea is infantile. Why? We already have humans. How many of us are there in the world? 7 billion or something? We already have humans. Oh, but we can create this thing to do this, and we can create that thing to do that, and it'll be fake and artificial and robotic, and here's a phone, and it can do this for you, and think for you, and shit for you, and live for you. While you become what? While we become what? Lazy, entitled, unoriginal, non-productive, uncreative, and useless. There are some people out there who cannot get from A to B without using the GPS, either in their car or in their phone. They don't remember how to get there the second time. So I think any device that is making it easier for people to think about basic stuff that we already had down for decades is ridiculous. It's not a mark of progress. It's a statement of de-evolution of the human species, where we're no longer required to use our brain, our God-given right to self-determination and intuition, even. On the issue of directions, you might think it's a bit of a tangent, but we have our own inbuilt compass. We have a sense of direction naturally. This has been explained in a number of ways, how we came to have this unseen sense of direction. But what this phone does, what these toys do, and they are toys, what they do is they provide you with an easy way so that your natural abilities never get exercised anymore. Abilities that we take for granted, that are just involuntary responses and part of being a human, get put on the back burner. People can't you can't ask somebody a question in the street without them pulling their phone out and saying, "Oh, let me just check my phone." Like, for what? Where the chemist is? You're kidding me. Are you from here? Yeah. Well, don't you know where the chemist is? Oh, hang on, just let me check my phone. They automatically check their phone. They actually automatically think that they have to check their phone for the answer to utterly everything. Absolutely everything. And so maybe even from that angle, you can talk to people about, in a way that is sort of pointing out to them that there's been a decline in human intelligence. You don't have to point the finger at them and call them idiots, but that there's been a decline. You've noticed there's been a decline in human intelligence over the last 50 years or so, and it's not looking good because nobody really knows how to do anything anymore without this device. We weren't born with it, and it's only a recent development. It's like a fad. It's a toy. Oh, look, it turns on. Oh, look, if I touch the screen, it speaks back to me. Oh, look, it validates my existence. Oh, look, it's answering me, Mummy. I is special. I is important. The machine, which is superior to me, acknowledges my existence. Now I feel like a valid human. And if I carry it round and I open up the social media apps, I get liked. People like me. Infantile. We only care about this stuff in primary school. Maybe for a little bit in high school, when there's all kinds of weird stuff happening and teenagers will be teenagers and it gets ugly. But then we grow up. We grow up and we don't need networks that are the equivalent of Romper Room. For those of you in Australia, we don't need networks that are the mental equivalent of Play School. Look, I posted a picture. This is show and tell. I have 2 sentences to write at the top about where I've been and what I've been doing. The first time I remember doing that exact thing is in prep, when I was 5 years old, in primary school. Now they believe they need to. Or we need to. I mean, it's shocking. It's shocking when you really think about it. It is absolutely shocking. I'm so sorry. There's when you hear me pause long, it's because I'm really struggling to reach for the word to describe, one, how difficult it is to talk to people about this. So I'm on the same page with you. But secondly, how utterly ridiculous it is that anybody, any adult or even a teenager could find safety in a device that the minute they open it, they've been located and probably bullied within the first 5 minutes of speaking. So it's not safe at all. Or patronized or infantilized. We like you. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Comment, reply to comment, reply to comment, fight breaks out. Safety, right? Yeah. Psychological warfare is what it is. It's trespass is what it is. That foreign companies that you don't know anything about who they are, where they come from, or what their agenda is, are in the background inside your phones, following you wherever you go in your country, in your street, in your office, in your house, in your bathroom, in your bedroom while you sleep. How many people really think about that and know about it? How many people brush it to one side when it's mentioned because they're already hopelessly inured to, a slab of ego? I mean, if you remember the movie Space Odyssey, 2001, Stanley Kubrick, and the monoliths that turned up, and all the apes went ape shit over this thing that just stood there in different locations. And I think the one with the apes was in the, Apeville, in the desert somewhere. And it just commanded their attention and their loyalty and their senses and their urges and their violence just by being there. The presence of it. The unknown of it. It's a fascinating insight when you look at that monolith being a smartphone and how the human race has responded to it no differently than apes in a movie. Bit hard hitting to try and bring that up with anybody. But if it gives you enough of a basis on which to form a lighter angle to try and talk about this with other people, I hope it does. Humans with these phones, they are egotistically driven. They find their sense of identity in it. And when you take it away, they will feel that there's a part of themselves that's being removed. They will feel that you are attacking who they are. They will feel that they are removing their sense of identity because it has been placed in a military weapon. And that's what they are. The smartphones are military weapons. Technically, they are terrorism. Scientifically, they are terrorism. But when you get apes using weapons, well, they're not always going to shoot in the right direction, are they? Because they haven't figured out it's a weapon yet until they let off a few rounds and suddenly look around and people are dropping down dead. The deeper truth about a smartphone, specifically iPhones, is so shocking that I don't really want to talk about that yet. We can look at that another time. I think there's plenty of evidence of it in the video files that I've uploaded. So when you say, how can I help those around me realize what is happening? I think it's a very delicate process. It's a number of conversations. It's taking the opportunities. It's making the most of every opportunity to shame the network operators, the CEOs, to, in a roundabout way, put your friends and loved ones on the spot or other people online on the spot and ask them whether or not they care about being under the same roof as pedophiles and try and avoid an argument. They're going to get defensive. But for me, the way that I have approached it is along similar lines, but also I don't have one. And whether it's with strangers or people I know, the fact that I don't have one when I'm around them is enough to trigger a bit of a discussion. And it's, I think, enough to make them think, well, yeah, that's actually still a possibility. There is still somebody out there who functions fine and gets along fine in the world, to greater or lesser degrees as anybody else, without a smartphone. So it can be done. I mean, it's just sad that businesses, jobs, everyone's like, oh, we can't, if we've got a business, we've got to get Facebook. No, you don't. If we want to make money, we've got to be on Instagram. No, you don't. Oh, well, I want to be a comedian. I've better get on YouTube. No, you don't. You don't have to do that at all. You can actually open a shop front and you get what's called foot traffic. And people find out about you, you do good business, and there you go, bang. Suddenly you're earning a weekly wage. You didn't need Facebook. And you know what? People on Facebook who subscribe to your page, they don't want to hear from you as much as you think they do. Most of them don't even want to be in the presence of their own friends and family 24 hours a day on Facebook and carry them around in their pocket all the time. Most of them scroll through and don't even bother looking at half the stuff you post. They don't care because they only care about their posts. So when you get a room full of people who only care about what they themselves are doing, there's not much point to any of it. Show and tell, play school, romper room, on a device that boosts the ego and gives a false sense of self-esteem, even to intelligent people, even to extremely intelligent people with high IQs. The minute they pull out their phone, they think they're God. It's obviously not healthy, and it's sad. And the other thing that I've noticed with people that have become so hopelessly inured on that technology is how vacant they eventually get in the eyes, how non-thinking, they're rude in public, they talk on them in public, can't go anywhere, can't even go into a supermarket or some little cute store somewhere without somebody down the back talking on their phone and with their hands on their hips like they're a business tycoon. They're not, but they think they are. They're deluded. And, there's people out there who say, I'm not a sheep, I'm not one of the herd. Well, have you got a smartphone, mate? Of course I do. You can't live without it these days. Load of bullshit, sheep. It's interesting to see how far people's arguments go about how aware they might think they are, and how separated from the herd they think they are, and how individualistic they are. And then they pull out their smartphone and prove that they're just like everybody else. They're not independent thinking at all. They have the classic sheep machine in their pocket. It's like a portable TV. How many people have stopped watching TV because it's bad for their eyes? Or because it keeps reprojecting an image of reality that is low frequency? How many of them care? Very few, because the system that we live in has dictated that our lives be held hostage to earning money, to put food in our mouths, clothes on our backs, a roof over our heads to survive. Our very own governments threaten us with starvation if we do not work. And when decent, good people have done a long day's hard work and they want to come home and flick the TV on and have a beer and put their feet up, I don't blame them. But it does become their fault when they do become informed and they reject the information and continue to hurt themselves and others out of sheer defiance, when the solution is not difficult. It's not a huge sacrifice to not watch TV. It's not a huge sacrifice to not carry a smartphone around. You don't lose anything. You gain freedom. You gain your mind back. You gain the ability to think and navigate for yourself through the world. You gain a higher attention span. You gain your energy back because you're not constantly being subconsciously fatigued by a device that is always on when you carry it. You get your sense of calmness and aliveness and enjoyment of life back because you're no longer suffering from anxiety from carrying around a device that is on all the time, while psychological warfare goes on within it, in the air around you, 24/7, that you are connected to subconsciously and through the ether because you have accounts on those networks. Nobody loses anything by not having a smartphone. And if they think they do, it's the first sign of being hoodwinked and deluded, brainwashed into thinking that way or choosing to think that way because it's convenient and the device feeds an addiction and keeps their self-identity in place. They're terrified, some of them, to let it go because they do not know who they would be without an Instagram profile picture. And that's not their fault. It's not their fault. It only becomes their fault when the evidence and the rational argument is presented and they choose to reject it. They see it, they know it, and they choose to reject it, and then it does become their fault. But also at that point, in fairness to them, their brains have been reprogrammed to reject it. They have been rewired by these networks to reject the idea that they are being ridiculous by having a smartphone filled with apps. Their egoic mind has been rewarded for using a smartphone and those apps. They get a dopamine hit. So there are chemical processes and neuronal processes that are occurring in the brain itself that make it more difficult for them to see reason on this subject. And they are more inclined to knee-jerk reaction, agree for the sake of looking socially acceptable, and then go back to doing whatever they were doing with that device before as though they never had the conversation. So you have to be very careful with how you go about it. You seem to be worried about being shunned as a lunatic. Then don't be a lunatic when you talk about it. Be real. There's no need to panic or be dramatic. Just be real and approach them with real concerns. Hey man, can you believe they actually aired a live shooting on family-friendly Facebook where you can stay in touch with family and friends, keeping the world together. Let's all hold hands. I mean, really, Anyway, I hope that my answer has helped you in some way, or at least given you food for thought in terms of how you want to approach this with people. I wouldn't worry about anybody thinking that you're nuts. Everyone is, to some degree. And I'm sure you're intelligent enough, you certainly seem to be able to navigate those conversations for yourself. Doing it on the internet is already, difficult, because there are so many people that the typing on the internet is just no way to have a real conversation. There it is. Typing on the internet is no way to have a real conversation. Can't hear you, can't see you. I can only read what you've written, and what you've written is probably only about 10% of everything that you're thinking and feeling, the information from which I would receive instantly if you were in front of me and I could see the look on your face, your mannerisms, and hear the tone of your voice. And all of that information is stripped when people type online. So, I know I'm speaking with a lot of derision here and disgust for the people behind this. I don't mean any disrespect to Steve Jobs or even the United States, obviously feeling that they had to up the ante to protect their country from them terrorists and Russia. And, people are going to do what they're going to do, what they feel that they need to do. And technology companies are going to invent and release what they feel they need to invent and release. The Department of Defense is going to invent and release whatever it feels is going to help, or even just line their pockets. People will do whatever they can do, and more often than not, without thinking too much about it, without factoring important things in, without considering the consequences, because the kill of success that comes with that feeling of success or having invented something great is so all-consuming in the moment, that all of those other considerations just fall by the wayside. And before you know it, they've sold a extremely bad idea to the public. They haven't tested it long term on anything. They haven't been able to test it long term on anything. They just put it out there, put it in people's hands, whacked the internet inside it, and sent the internet through the telecommunications network, through Wi-Fi, through cell towers. And think about that. Unprotected signal. The internet is in the air, in the ether, all the time, 24/7. And people wonder what the simulation is. People wonder what the Matrix is. It's not that difficult to see it. It's right there. And all of it being broadcast at frequencies, harmonics and subharmonics, all this impacting our DNA, our energy, our human biofield, our thoughts, manipulating emotionally, addicting, rigging us up to time code, to Google Maps, of all things. Geographic coordinates which have utterly nothing to do with the magnetic field of this planet, nor how a human naturally navigates through the world. Utterly nothing. It's all concocted. It's fake. They sold military technology to the general public. It's a war crime. It's that simple. You're not allowed to do that. Militarizing the public in peacetime by giving them weapons like smartphones, which are a weapon, is a war crime. Simple as that. But they don't think of it like that. It's inconvenient. Big business tycoons want to have that portable phone so that they can talk to this guy and do that deal and organise which hooker to screw next, and how many lines of coke they're going to be doing that night. So the technology that we've been sold was originally sort of had the upper end of the business world in mind in terms of its use. And unless you are a doctor who needs to be reached in emergency or emergency services, or at the very least some sort of tour manager where you need to be on hand 24/7 to get a job done. Unless you're one of those people, you don't need a smartphone. And pretending that you're one of those people just because you've got one's really fucking idiotic. Sorry. Infantile. And it's debasing, it's embarrassing, it's an insult to one's own sense of intelligence and integrity. So, you know, they're my strong feelings on it. You don't want to go there with people and tell them that when you talk to them. They're already beaten up enough because nobody liked their new profile picture. You know, they're about to neck themselves because they can't change the course of American politics through one Facebook post. The most they can hope for is a few people who might agree and a couple of hundred likes until the next one. And it all just becomes very shallow and pointless. And they like to be popular. It's just unfortunate that popularity is also a shallow buzz. But, you know, it's a fast-paced world. A lot of people are at work 9 to 5. They come home. It's easy for them to text people than it is to call because they're tired and they've been talking all day. You know, it's easy for them to just check their messages and get around to calling people back at some point, but I really don't see the difference between that and an answering machine. I mean, most people have smartphones and leave them turned off anyway, or they don't answer the phone call when it rings anyway. So what's the point in having a mobile phone? Some of it's just basic logic. What do you need that for? You know, you have it turned off most of the time. You may as well just get an answering machine and save yourself the trouble of being tracked everywhere and having your entire DNA messed with by the crap that's coming out of that phone all the time, let alone the damage that it's doing, the radiation that it's spitting in your face and the tumours that it's causing in your brain. Or the fact that it's making you incapable of having children because you've kept it in your pocket near your nuts for 10 years. So, you know, that might seem a bit extreme to some people because the stats aren't in on that yet. It hasn't really been around long enough to see what happens with people after they've used one for 25 years, whether they have gross tumours growing all through their heads or not. But the simple fact that it's something that's been released with no safety precaution whatsoever, except, you might not want to sit that close to your laptop screen, you know, keep this at a distance. Well, by the time you keep it at that distance, you can't read what's on the damn thing, can you? I mean, that's how stupid they are, the people who make this stuff. Here, we're going to make a small screen. So, and the only way you'll be able to read what's on it is if you hold it right up to your eyeballs. But don't do that. Pull it back so you can't read it. Otherwise, you'll get radiation. So they're basically saying, we've sold you something that you can't use without some harm coming to you. And especially long term, we don't even know what that is yet. So that could be one way of putting it. Rather than having a go at the people around you for having one, have a go at the people who invented them and have a laugh about them with your friends and whoever it is you might want to be helping them to realize what is happening without being shunned as a lunatic. And as for the rest of what is happening, I think we'd probably be here for another hour or so. If I started talking about that now, I only hope that I can at least address some of those concerns in more videos to come. So Nazaratsu, thank you for being here. I hope I've said enough to sum it up for you. And to everybody else, thanks for listening. And I will see you again, joke, soon. Thanks.